Hello. Today we're going to work on IXL assignment 2B5, multiply and divide signed fractions. First, let's refresh our memory on the rules for multiplying integers, because that's what it means by signed fractions. There will be some fractions that are positive and some fractions that are negative. So we're working with rational numbers. So when we're dealing with positive and negative numbers, if you are multiplying or dividing and your numbers have the same sign, then your answer will always be positive. So here's a cute little graphic to help us remember that if the signs are the same, both positive or both negative, our answer will be happy. It will be positive. Now, if you are multiplying or dividing and your numbers have different signs, your answer will always be negative. So if we have one of each, that makes these little faces sad and has that negative, answer. So a -9 times a +5 would give us a -45. A +72 divided by a -8 gives us a -9. So just for that quick recap, when we're multiplying or dividing, if the numbers have the same sign, so they're both positive or they're both negative, your answer will always be positive. If the two numbers have opposite signs, then your answer will always be negative. All right, now let's quickly refresh our memories on how we multiply fractions, so then we can put those two concepts together. When you're multiplying fractions, all you need to do is honestly just multiply. We are going to multiply the numerators together. So if we have 3 times 1, you multiply your numerators to give you an answer of 3. And then you also multiply your denominators. Make sure that you remember that part. So 4 and 2 would be multiplied to give you an 8. Because when we're multiplying, our answers can get very large, you do always want to make sure that it is simplified completely before you finalize your answer. And in this case, it is. Other than a GCF of 1, there's nothing that 3 and 8 have in common. So when you multiply in fractions, you just multiply straight across. Numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. All right, now for dividing fractions, we have one additional step that we have to complete. So when you're dividing fractions, we, in some ways, can't really divide them. So what we have to do is we have to change our problem to a multiplication problem. And a little acronym that you've maybe heard of before to help you remember that is keep, change, flip. So we keep that first fraction the same. So the 3/4 stays a 3/4. And then we change our division sign to multiplication. And then we flip, otherwise known as taking the reciprocal of our second fraction. Once we've done that, it's just like the previous page. It's now a multiplication problem, so you can multiply your numerators and your denominators. So the extra step that you have is when you're dividing fractions, you have to change it to a multiplication problem using keep, change, flip. 3 times 7 is 21. And then 4 times 2 is 8. And then you could go forward and, depending on the directions, either leave your answer as an improper fraction or turn it to a mixed number. It just kind of depends on your directions, but that's, the basics for dividing. All right, let's go ahead and switch on over to IXL so we can combine our integer rules, so our positives and negatives, with our fractions and get some good practice in there. All right, guys, we're now on IXL here. Remember, the assignment is 2B5, multiply and divide positive and negative fractions. And just as a quick reminder, IXL has some awesome videos for you as well. So after you finish this, if you want to see more examples or maybe just hear it from a different perspective, a different voice, check out the video IXL's made for you. All right, we have our first problem here. We are being asked to divide -1/4 and 2/7. The first thing I like to do, just so I can make sure that I don't forget about it, is decide whether my answer is going to be positive or negative. So remember, when you're multiplying and dividing numbers, if the signs are the same, your answer will be positive. If the signs are different, your answer will be negative. And we can see here our first fraction is a negative, our second fraction is a positive. So because they have different signs, my answer will be negative. Now that I have that little reminder to make sure I don't forget about it, I can just focus in on dividing my fractions. I'm going to continue to write the negative with it, just so that way it doesn't look like I'm creating a brand new problem. But as long as you ensure your answer is negative in the end, it doesn't really, affect anything else. All right, remember that when we're dividing fractions, we actually need to rewrite it as a multiplication problem. And we can remember to do that by using keep, change, flip. So we keep the first fraction the same. That stays a -1/4. We change our division sign to a multiplication sign. And then we flip our second fraction. So that means we take the reciprocal, we flip it, and it becomes 7/2. Now that it's been rewritten as a multiplication problem, we can multiply like normal, and we multiply fractions by going straight across. So numerator times numerator, -1 times 7 would give us a -7. Denominator times denominator, 4 times 2 is 8. And look at that, my answer is negative, which is what I said it should be. That's a great, way to double check. When you type this answer in IXL, make sure to put the negative first, and which, the negative and the subtraction sign are the same button on your keyboard. And then you can enter 7, and then this little backslash is a fraction bar, and 8. So that's how it would look typed into IXL. All right, let's look at this problem. We are being asked to multiply -1/4 and -4/5. So first, I'm going to check out the sign so I don't forget about it. We have a negative times a negative. When you're multiplying and dividing, if the signs are the same, your answer will always be positive. So that means I'm going to have a positive answer. Now let's do our multiplication. We have -1/4 times -4/5. When we multiply, we go straight across. So numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. -1 times -4. A negative times a negative is a +4. And then 4 times 5 is 20. Now, we are going to test this out. I believe that because this assignment is solely based on the multiplication and division, that it would accept the answer of 4/20. But let's go ahead and, work on simplifying it for that quick little review. And then, we can always double check when we put it into IXL together. So 4 and 20, I noticed that they're both even numbers. So I could simplify by dividing by 2, and that would give us 2/10. And then, they're both still even numbers, so I could divide again by 2, and that would give us 1/5. So 1/5 would be our most simplified answer, but let's go ahead and type 4/20 in so we can see if it's correct. And when your answer is positive, you don't need to put a plus sign. Just having nothing there denotes that it is positive. All right, perfect. It is correct. That's good to know. But I do encourage you, if you want to practice simplifying just like I did off to the side, for that extra practice, you're more than welcome to. All right, let's do about 2 more examples together. We'll try to do 1 more division and 1 more multiplication. So we're being asked to divide. First thing, let's check out our signs. I notice that both numbers are positive. So 1, this is kind of like what you're, used to seeing. Both numbers are positive. It doesn't really change anything. But if we remind ourselves of the rules when we're working with signed numbers, so positives and negatives, if they have the same sign, your answer will be positive. Different signs, your answer will be negative. So since they have the same sign, it'll just stay positive. So we can always put that there to remind ourselves. All right, we have 1/4, and that is divided by 1/2. Remember, when you have a division problem, you need to use keep, change, flip to rewrite it as a multiplication problem. So keep the first fraction the same. Change your division to multiplication, and then flip your second fraction. So 2/1, take the reciprocal. Once you've done that, just multiply straight across. 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 1 is 4. And as we learned last time, 2/4 is an acceptable answer in IXL. But if you wanted to simplify it for extra practice, you could. Well, 2/4, both of those numbers are divisible by 2. It would simplify, it would reduce to be 1/2. And IXL should accept both answers. And in fact, it does, which is great to have that proven to ourselves. All right, last question here. We have -1/3 being multiplied by 3/5. When I look at this, I notice that my numbers have different signs. I have one negative fraction and one positive. So that means my answer will be negative. Now I can just multiply my fraction straight across. -1 times 3 would be -3. 3 times 5 would be 15. And then if we wanted to simplify that, both 3 and 15 have a factor of 3. They're both divisible by 3. So we could reduce that. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So either form of your answer is acceptable in IXL, since this assignment is focusing on the multiplication and division aspect. All right, I hope that this helped. It is now your turn to hop on IXL. And if you have any questions, make sure to reach out or come to a help session. Bye.